Hey guys, welcome back. We have a midweek energy update to get into. We're moving through a week right now, which honestly is like kind of anticlimactic. There's not a whole bunch going on. Again, like if you watched my Monday video, I was talking about how this week energetically sort of feels like a pause in the big significant action that has been going on lately. And it is a very good week to take a break, take time out, take a vacation preferably. That type of vibe really is supported here. We have Venus and Jupiter in an exact sextile both Wednesday and Thursday of this week at the very last 2 degrees of their signs. Both of them about to wrap up their transits, Venus through Aries, Jupiter through Gemini, and they're an exact positive, supportive aspect with one another. This is generally just probably going to create an urge for some good times, some leisure, rest, relaxation, maybe a little bit of indulgence. Be careful with the overindulgence though. That's really the only red flag of the energy this week. Other than that though, things are probably going to be operating quite smoothly. Wednesday may be another day where energy just kind of dips a bit and you find yourself feeling very tired or like detached from reality in some type of fantasy land. The moon transiting through the sign of Libra will form an opposition with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and that could kind of be just like disassociating us from reality to an extent. However, as we continue to move into Thursday, we have the sun in Gemini coming into a trine, well, the moon actually in Libra coming into a trine with the sun in Gemini. That is more very harmonious energy. So all week, really, this is quite favorable. In fact, if you need to ask for a favor, raise, promotion, do it. You're likely to get a positive response from people, and it's like a very mutually beneficial energy as well. We do have a lot to talk about, though. There's a lot of different ways that this energy can play out, and so let's get into it. Let's take a look at what we do have coming together for us as we hit the midpoint of our week this week, and what this energy asks for and indicates as we move through the week and towards the weekend. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. My name is Aubrey. This is your astrological outlook of the day where we are narrating the shift of the ages. And if you guys stick with me until the end of this report, I have done a collective tarot reading for us today as well. I like to tap the energy field for more than one modality whenever I'm doing these energy overviews, just to get an alternative energetic perspective on what's going on out there. So there could be some messages in there for you. We're going to do that at the end. We've got astrology to get into. This is a more light-hearted week. As I was saying in my intro, and if you guys caught my video prior to this one, my Monday video, I was also saying that there's just like not that much happening this week. Really, June is an interesting month itself because there's like a void. There's very minimal transits that are happening throughout the entire course of the month of June, which is unusual. But what we do have is a lot of planets changing signs. Actually, we have 6 planets changing signs throughout the course of the month of June, which is a lot. So we've got not very much like planetary activity by way of the connections, activations, and transits, but we've got a lot of shifting vibes going on, and we've actually got some of that coming up over this next couple of days. And the planets Venus and Jupiter are leading the way in terms of these planetary shifts going on. They're at the last couple of degrees of their signs as we hit Wednesday and Thursday of this week, and they're going to be forming a sextile aspect with one another, which is one of the activations that is highlighted this week and that is leaning into the take a break, go on vacation, take a rest, like recreation, leisure, not getting a whole lot done type of energy. But this is also really good, and we're going to be talking about all the different ways that this energy can kind of express itself throughout the course of the report. But it is also good for, you know, marketing, sales, negotiations. There could be some like good, mutually beneficial and successful deals that go on this week. Also, legal matters are generally supported. And as I was saying, there is this emphasis on some type of important connections between people. That's really where I'm seeing the major significance taking place this week, actually. It's not in terms of like what's happening, it's more like who's happening, because there's something about, and it's like specifically two, it's specifically like the self and the other, or and another, something about, you know, twos, couples, pairs, sets, twins, counterparts, all that type of stuff just is being like repeatedly emphasized to me, like over and over and over again. So, and then, you know, we have had this trine going on between Venus and Mars that has been such a prominent energy this past couple of weeks, which is about these like harmonious pairings going on as well. And we are moving through Gemini season, of course, which is the sign of the twins. So there could be something oriented around the number 2 that is of significance this week as well. But let's talk about this. Lighthearted energy, as I said, it does favor doing something different, taking some time off, recreation, play, indulgence, enjoyments over the routine business of the day. You could feel probably just like a general lack of discipline and unwillingness to work. I think a lot of people might be experiencing an unwillingness to work, either coming from themselves or in terms of people that they are dealing with and interfacing with, especially on Wednesday. Now, this Jupiter-Venus sextile, because that's what's going on, Aries and Gemini sextile one another. It's a skip a sign. We've got Aries, and then we've got Taurus, and we've got Gemini, and they create this harmonious aspect with one another when we skip a sign. The skip a signs get along well, and that's where they're at. And as I said, they are wrapping up their transits of their individual signs. Also, Venus transiting through Aries hits 28 degrees of Aries on Wednesday. Jupiter's at 28 degrees of Aries on Wednesday, and therefore they have their first exact sextile on Thursday. Venus will move to 29 degrees of Aries, and Jupiter will also be concluding his couple of days stay at the 28th degree and moving to 29 degrees, that last critical degree of the sign of Gemini as well. And of course, Venus and Jupiter, this is like a big heart. This is very generous energy. So as we get into this report, another good thing to say up front would be, you know, if you need to ask for a favor, like a raise or a promotion, or again, like some type of sale or pitch or deal or negotiation or contract, you're probably going to be more so well received in this energy because it favors open-heartedness, generosity, compassion, and also kind of like impulsiveness and indulgence. Now those are, and we'll talk about this more as we get into the report, but those really are the only red flags of this energy, is being maybe a bit overindulgent, getting a bit carried away, maybe like over investing or splurging too much. So as long as we can keep a handle on it, this is probably going to be, I think, a quite satisfying and good week, although definitely lacking on the discipline, getting things done, being productive end. Now, it's not our fault, you guys. We can't help it. Like, normally we do need to have a level of accountability for our actions always, but in this energy, it is, especially on Wednesday, we've got the Jupiter-Venus situation, which, as I said, really does energetically favor the leisure end of things, like not doing the most. This is a very like feminine and receptive energy. That's where the like growth and, I don't know, the good fortune stuff actually comes from, is what we're able to receive. It's more like being overdoing energy. But on Wednesday also, of course, you know, the moon would have to be transiting through the sign of Libra, one of Venus's signs, while she's at the last couple of degrees of Aries and in the sextile to Jupiter, like really leading heavy into what is happening with Venus and this expansive desire to just enjoy life or have pleasure or splurge or indulge somehow. Like the moon is amplifying, okay, what is already a strong energy, suggesting those very things. And then on Wednesday, we put the moon in Libra also into an exact opposition with Saturn and Neptune in a conjunction in the sign of Aries. So, and Venus is, mind you, Venus is like at 28, 29 degrees with sign of Aries, like the tail end of Aries. And then we've got Saturn and Neptune at the very, very beginning, the very like 0 degrees of the sign of Aries. With the moon in Libra in an opposition, that honestly is really, really breaking down our ability to maintain this structure. Okay, I've been talking about this. This is going to be something that we're actually dealing with throughout, you know, the next several months, and that is Saturn and Neptune in a conjunction together. This is, I do think, indicating a major transition in terms of essentially like how things are done, how things are run, what's in control, who's in control, where the authority lies, and the way that things are constructed, especially even maybe in terms of like our belief systems. It's also a very, very strong positive manifestation energy. That's another thing about the energy Wednesday and Thursday this week, you guys. Highly creative, like muse almost type energy, very strong musical like inclination running through here as well, and we'll get there. But there is just this kind of systemic breakdown in rules, structures, laws, authority, that which has governed and supported and maintained the structure and perception of things for long periods of time under a state of flux in many different contexts and areas of life. But with that moon, the Libra moon in opposition, you know, and Venus sextile Jupiter at the very last few degrees, while Saturn and Neptune are together at the beginning of the sign that Venus is leaving right now, it's just not the story this week. Like, forcing ourselves to maintain some type of order is just not the flow of things. So therefore, I think that there is not going to be much happening. And it's funny, like, as we move through the energy this week and my like understanding of what's happening right now evolves through looking at the transits that we are like cycling through right now, or that we're moving through, and seeing like, because I was looking at the energy and I was like, oh, you know, just doesn't feel like there's much going on. And then as we move through it, it's like, oh, well, right, there's not much going on because nobody's in the mood to get anything done, and nobody can focus, and like nobody really like needs to be sitting there. Like, there's, for some reason, like we need to be out doing something else somewhere else. And so therefore like nothing's really getting done. And so that's why I'm like, you know, if there's a time that you need to take off and you don't want to have, you know, backlog and consequences, or feel like you're FOMO, feel like you're missing out on something, this is just probably a good time, because you're not going to be missing much, because there's just not going to be a lot that's able to be executed on in this energy. Okay, so that's how I feel about that. Vacation vibes literally written all over the energy of especially Wednesday, also Thursday this week. You may also, with the moon activating again, that Saturn Neptune conjunction, just feel super like tired, drained, like out of it, lost in some ideal or fantasy or vision, perhaps somehow. Remember, this is a strong manifestation, creation, divine inspiration, dreams, ideals, and visions into reality type of energy as well. So it could also be manifesting in terms of people kind of just being very zoned in terms of what they're focused on building or creating, but in a more type of like meditative, like drawing it out, like bringing the vision through in a way that we can see it, but aren't necessarily like putting the effort into building it at this point in time. It's a very like ideas, conception, becoming known in a way that will be translated into something physical in the future. But right now we could just be sort of like caught up in the vision of it and feeling a bit disconnected from the greater reality as a result of that. Like, that could be one way that this is coming through here, like sort of the desire to shut out the world. Also just needing extra sleep, or wanting to like binge some show or like a book or something that you just get super caught up in. Or also just kind of this larger desire to escape reality a bit. Things could feel like they're coming undone, kind of just very transitional, very changing right now, and like kind of just want to check out of reality and disconnect somehow. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the desire with the moon transiting through Libra, opposing Saturn and Neptune, at least for a portion of the day. It might not be all day because the moon moves pretty quick and is not going to be under the influence of Saturn and Neptune for the whole day, but there could be a portion of the day where you just are like, I am checked out right now. I do not know what's going on. I need to like go take a time out. Do that if you need to. Now, another way, as I was saying, that this energy could manifest itself is in terms of being quite indulgent, spending money frivolously with the Libra moon opposed Saturn and Neptune. This is just like no limitations, especially, and also with Jupiter. Jupiter supersizes and expands things. With Venus is like making purchases, online purchases. I have a hypothesis that Wednesday is going to be a really good day for online retailers. I think people are just going to be like spending money. I say online specifically because Jupiter is in Gemini, and that's like communication and, you know, things going back and forth, the internet and stuff like that. So, and transactions. So I don't know. I think a lot of people could be frivolously spending money with like very little constraint or limitation perhaps on Wednesday. This could also be very like emotionally or just generally like impulse purchase driven, like indulgence driven. I think impulse purchase and emotional purchases could be a big driver behind some of this. And there also is quite an obsessive energy that could somehow be wrapped up in this also. The moon in Libra, remember this is an air sign. We currently have Pluto right now retrograding the sign of Aquarius. So the moon in Libra will be both opposed Saturn and Neptune and trine Pluto in Aquarius, while Jupiter and Venus are in the sextile. There could be purchases made that really though, like, here's the thing. We could be spending a lot of money, spending frivolously, but also I don't think these are going to be things that like people really regret buying. In fact, they could be things that somehow are quite like transformative or healing or regenerative somehow. This is also could be like futuristic, like sci-fi technology type of things that we're kind of drawn to with the trine to Pluto in Aquarius. So, I don't know. I think a lot of people are just going to be spending a lot of money and maybe in quite like an obsessive and unrestricted or unlimited and like guided by a vision maybe type of way on Wednesday specifically, but also on Thursday. That Pluto drive and also the fact that Venus is in the sign of Aries, that is sort of also like anything goes to get what I want, you know, like no boundaries or barriers or restrictions to what we're going to spend, what we're going to do in order to acquire maybe whatever that thing is that we feel like we need to transform, fix, regenerate. I don't know what it is, feel some desire or passion with the way that this energy is lining up for us. And then, of course, you know, as I have referenced, if that's kind of how people are, right? If people are like, just kind of caught in a vision or an ideal of what they want, almost in an obsessive way for some reason that they feel like is going to be like have a powerful impact on them for some reason. And we have the Venus and Jupiter that is like, go ahead, spend money. It's great. It'll be good for both of us. The flip side of that then would be if you happen to be involved in anything that deals with sales or marketing or anything that like retail along those lines, it's probably going to be your pitches are going to be well received. It's probably going to be a good time to close those deals because people are going to be more optimistic and open to the success of whatever it is that you're pitching, whatever it is that you are selling. And the positive outcome, growth-oriented, like good for money vibe that we've got going on from Venus and Jupiter suggests that you're probably going to be able to make a lot of sales. But it also, of course, you know, when I'm describing this energy, we would have to imagine that it would also lend a bit of like lack of realism, like unrealistic and kind of like overdone tendencies as well. So just be aware, you guys, don't splurge in a way that is super out of control, but it is like, this is an energy where it's like super buyer's remorse. It's actually like, oh, you know, I spent a lot of money, but I'm actually glad I got that because it ended up working out. Like, I'm glad that I got that. There's not like regrets about the purchases. Like Venus and Jupiter, this is like a mutually beneficial outcome. Success both ways. So even if it takes things over the top, I don't know, maybe it's over the top for the right reasons. Moving on, as I referenced earlier, legal matters, anything to do with law. And it's interesting also because we're talking about Venus. This can have to do with legal situations and contracts and deals. And then we're also talking about the sign of Gemini, which also can do with contracts and deals and negotiations. And we're talking about the moon transiting through Libra, which is a sign of the scales, which can also have to do with deals and the back and forth of things. And then we're talking about the moon opposite Saturn, which is the law, which is the authority, which is the judgment, which is like the contract itself. You know what I mean? So there is a lot of energy right now indicating, or that could be bringing up or referencing legal matters for some reason. There could be judgments, but with Saturn, with Neptune and the moon in opposition, it's almost like a rebalance in Jupiter and Venus. It's like a positive outcome, like balance being restored, things being like tempered out, or just the scales being evened out somehow, in by way though of like some type of judgment or law or ruling being like dismantled or breaking down with Saturn that would represent that judgment or law or ruling. And Libra also has to do with legal situations and judgments and stuff like that. But with the Neptunian influence, that breaks things down, that dissolves things, that dismantles things, that disintegrates things. So it seems like there could be a common occurrence kind of scenarios that go on this week, or things like along these lines that have to do with justice being served somehow through some type of judgment, rule, law, restriction, charge that is like being dropped or dismantled or coming undone or overturned somehow. And again, like, this would bring positive outcomes. This would create like a fair result with the Venus Jupiter sextile exact going on as well. Also things to do with debates and arguments, maybe especially pertaining to legal matters or situations, but just generally are going to have positive outcomes most likely in this energy as well, especially if the people involved have planets around or aspecting, you know, either Venus or Jupiter, or maybe even the moon in Libra. Venus is at 28 and 29 degrees of Aries. Jupiter is at 28 and 29 degrees of Gemini. While they move through these sextiles, the outcomes are going to be supported, okay? This is giving positive results. Another way, you know, again, now let's talk about this concept of two that keeps coming up over and over again. It's Jupiter and Venus in a sextile together. I mean, we're moving through Gemini season, which is always a time of year that can emphasize the duality of things generally. Gemini is the sign of the twins, but that's really not why I'm saying that. We have Gemini season every year, and I'm not always like, oh my God, why am I just seeing twos everywhere constantly all the time? Symbolism and numerology and the way that all these planets are finding their way to each other and their synchronistic alignments right now as well. There is something being emphasized in the energy field about two, about things being magnetized together, and something about this week, it seems, with Venus and Jupiter in the sextile right now, the new relationships that are being formed and drawn together and connected right now being, on one hand, very mutually beneficial, but on the other hand, something that brings growth through the connection somehow. While we are also moving through a time that has a lot to do with the breakdown and transition in relationships. We actually just got done with a Venus Chiron conjunction, which could have been really bringing up some wounds in the context of relationships, and maybe some painful situations that could have played out. This seems to be energy that is trying to help us heal and recover from that. The Libra moon, of course, also emphasizing Venus and relationships and connections to other people. Venus rules other people and the relationship realms and dimensions of our lives. And in the positive sextile right there to Jupiter, who's in the sign of Gemini, the sign of the twins, also about connections and interpersonal dynamics and couplings and pairs. There's just something that is positive and growth oriented about the synchronistic nature that people are coming together right now, and it is very purposeful, and it is meant to support, I think, the growth and acceleration of the process of both parties involved. So if you got some interesting things going on with another person or a partnership dynamic or some relationship situation or something like that, there could be a greater meaning behind it, especially if it's like coming together somehow this week. Now, another way that this energy is potentially manifesting out there is in terms of music. There is something about music. Maybe music is highlighted in a meaningful way somehow as we move through Wednesday and Thursday this week. But I mean, it's for a couple different reasons. Now, Venus, of course, this is the planet ruling art and beauty and music. We also right now have Neptune beginning a new transit of the sign of Aries. Neptune also has to do with divine inspiration and music and art and the arts and beauty. With Saturn there is that is also, I feel like, referencing a breakdown in the way that art and music and beauty has been conveyed for traditionally or for a set period of time. And I think that we may actually begin to see some new expressions of the arts in ways that are just, I don't know, like less limited or less contained or more refined, actually, also like more mature or refined or evolved in their expression. It'll be interesting, this sort of like little side note, it'll be interesting to see the impact that this Saturn, Aries, Neptune conjunction that we've got going on right now and over the next year has on the arts, but specifically music. There may start to be just like some changes that happen in terms of what people are collectively drawn to, in terms of their experience of art and what is appealing while we move through this upcoming period of time, and we have that planetary dynamic going on. So like I said, just a little side note, maybe something to keep an eye on. But in terms of the energy of Wednesday, yeah, there's a strange emphasis on music for some reason. We have Venus and Jupiter together. That is emphasizing the ability to create beauty. The Libra moon is also a very like artistic, creative, like muse-oriented energy. This is hugely like a muse-oriented energy, I would say, on Wednesday. And then we actually have Venus at 29 degrees of Aries. That is the music of the spheres. And then we have Jupiter at 29 degrees of the sign of Gemini. Now, this is a Sabian symbol placement on Wednesday. They're actually at 28 degrees, but when we read the symbolism, we round up a degree because we read the wave of energy that's building and pulling in and manifesting, not the wave of energy that has already been and is, waning out. So we're reading 29 degrees of Aries and Gemini for the Sabian symbol placements on Wednesday. So that's why I'm saying 29 degrees. But yeah, the music of the spheres is where Venus is. And then exactly aspect 29 Gemini, that Sabian symbol is the first mockingbird of spring, sings from the treetops. So those two planets, which already are leaning in that direction, big, beautiful voice when we've got Venus and Jupiter in the sign of Gemini going on. Then we've got two symbols for the degree placement specifically referencing music and singing. So therefore, I'm going to say really good for arts, creativity, divinely channeled beauty and information, perhaps conveyed through song, lyrics, or music. So pay attention to music, you guys. Maybe indulge in some music somehow, song lyrics, write poetry, sing, play music. This is supporting our creative endeavors, and leisure, again, as I've said, is supported. It makes me think of those like Greek or Roman images where there's just like the overflow of the wine and the grapes and the the like harp players and stuff, and everybody is just sort of jolly and merry and just like having a good time. This is very celebration, party, gathering, get together oriented energy. Connecting and relating with others, of course, is going to be beneficial, positive, supportive. You're like the give and take here is quite pronounced and is just probably a good thing in some way. Shopping though, going out to eat, movies, plays, and like shows, performances, stuff like that, quite highlighted right now as well. And as I've said several times right now, sales, deals, negotiations, agreements, and contracts, this is a good time to do that stuff because it is going to likely in the long term end up having been a very fair exchange or very mutually beneficial somehow. Now, what is not supported in the energy of this week, you guys? Saturn and Neptune in a conjunction opposite the moon in Libra. Hard work, having discipline, especially self-discipline, and don't be hard on yourself if you just can't get it together. Like if you just can't stay focused, if you just like can't do it, okay? Because for whatever reason, we're just like not meant to right now. There's some bigger plan at play, and for whatever reason, like big important things can't get done this week. Like there's got to be a delay for some reason. Now, if you guys, one of my most recent videos, I don't know which one it was, but one of the recent ones I recorded, I was talking about, maybe it was a couple, how after we get, or as we get through the 10th and 11th of this month of June, there's definitely going to be an uptick in activity. Like things are going to be happening, things are going to be popping off, like it's going to be, you know, we've got some of this more climactic, perhaps borderline crisis oriented energy. So things are going to happen. Like we are moving towards the action, but right now it is just not there. So if you're not being productive, if nothing's getting done, maybe pivot and be more about the being than the doing this week, more about the receptive energy than the active energy. This is, I mean, Venus and Jupiter together, Libra moon, Saturn and Neptune, and Aries. Like this is not a super, like, as I've said, like action oriented, but like masculine drive energy type of situation. It's just favoring the feminine, receptive, like indulge, enjoyment, have pleasure, have fun, feel good, be comfortable. That's, I don't know, that just seems to be what it's about this week. So Wednesday could feature these like powerful desires. You know, it could be with the Pluto influence as well, powerful desires that are kind of taking us over a little bit. Again, don't let yourself get carried away, but there could be something that comes out of it that is actually like very beneficial for some reason. Now, on Thursday, the moon does continue obviously to transit through the sign of Libra and is no longer in that opposition to Saturn and Neptune or the trine to Pluto, but the moon does come into a harmonious trine with the sun in Gemini. So we really do on Thursday also have just kind of like more of this like positive vibe, harmonious, uplifting energy. And Venus and Jupiter have moved to the very, very last degree of their signs. Venus is now at 29 degrees of Aries on Thursday. Jupiter is at 29 degrees of Gemini, and 29 degrees of the sign of Gemini. That Sabian symbol is a parade of bathing beauties before large beach crowds, which is kind of the whole vibe this week with Venus and Jupiter in the expansive, positive, benefic, take a break, take a vacation, go to the beach type of energy, and emphasizing like the beauty and the art and the artistry and the creativity end of things. We also have the sun in that trine to the moon on Thursday at 16 degrees of Gemini. That Sabian symbol is a woman activist on a platform in an emotional speech, dramatizing her cause. So again, we still, like, even through the position of Jupiter and the sun on Thursday, we do still have this emphasis on this feminine feminine energy, the bathing beauties, the woman activist. And this could also be kind of a vibe, this like ask and ye shall receive type of energy, a bit of this like emotional dramatization of things, perhaps for the purpose of getting our way or achieving some desire, getting something that we want. I feel like, you know, that is very much the vibe of the week. This strong, receptive, feminine energy, right? So good for money, good for financial and legal matters, good for contracts and deals, good for friendships and relationships and counterparts and co-workers, or what, like two people in cahoots together. Ask for a favor if you need one. People are more likely to say yes this week than normally. This is an open-hearted, generous energy, and again, there's like less limitations and restraints on things having to do with finances, assets, resources, favors, friends, you know, positive, I would say, feelings generally going on. And then lastly, this emphasis on the coupling, the pairing, the twinning, the balancing, the reciprocal value, or, you know, things evening themselves out somehow. We have both Gemini and Libra highlighted this week. The moon transiting through Libra, sign of the scales, the sun in the trine to the moon in the sign of Gemini, the sign of the twins. And Wednesday, we actually have the sun at 15 degrees of Gemini. That Sabian symbol is two Dutch children talking and studying their lessons together. And we have Mercury, who is ruling our current lunar cycle, a prominent player right now at 22 degrees of the sign of Gemini, which is really like 222, because 22... Gemini, the symbol is the Roman numeral 2. So there's some more numerology. And that Sabian symbol is dancing couples crowd the barn in a harvest festival. So, and then we've got the position of Uranus right now as well. Two cobblers working side by side at a table. But like even the position of the sun, it's talking about two children talking and studying their lessons together. This, you know, social and collaborative energy with number 2, and then 222, Mercury ruling our current Gemini cycle, dancing couples crowd the barn in a harvest festival, this like celebratory, recreational counterpart doing something together type of energy, you know. And then even the Uranus degree, the two cobblers working side by side at the table. So we've got just multiple representations through symbolism, numerology, and astrology, again, all referencing the two. So there is something about perhaps fortunate, positive, benefic, or expansive relationship dynamics or connections having to do with the self in the context of the other that could be prominent, relevant, or of significance this week. So do something that you enjoy if you can, you guys. Take a break if you can. Go on a trip or a vacation if you can. You won't be missing much. Don't like feel like you're gonna go somewhere and you're gonna come back and everything's gonna have been done without you. It's not gonna happen this week. There is a pause in significant climactic events that are a part of this greater shift, transition, and transformation that is, you know, kind of collectively underway right now and trickling down in many, many, many different ways and affecting us. So that's what I think. That's what I have to say. That is, to me, how our energy is coming together Wednesday and Thursday this week for us. We got an interesting set of tarot cards coming through here. It seems like there could be something going on right now. Maybe it's also happening a bit behind the scenes, but that is actually leading to a reversal and kind of like a variety of different components or features or elements of our lives that maybe has been keeping us in some type of state of lack or separation or victimhood for some reason. Now it's, you know, it's kind of an interesting reading. I'm sure it could go a ton of different ways, but we have two cards here. We have the Ace of Wands, and then we have the Five of Pentacles. These two cards, to me, are talking about some type of like creative impulse or like spark of inspiration or like sudden opportunity or something like that that comes about that like opens our eyes or moves us out of a state or a space or a place of lack. Now on the back of the deck, I'm actually looking at these 4 cards because they were all flipped over, and then all the other cards on the back of the deck were the back of the deck. So anyways, these 4 cards I like needed to look at as well. And we have the 7 of Wands in reverse. We have the Judgment card in reverse. We have the 6 of Pentacles in reverse, the Ace of Swords in reverse. Again, like, especially considering that there seems to be some type of like rebalancing or restabilizing or, you know, return to reciprocity or something somehow that is taking place through what is coming down, what is being dismantled, what is falling apart, or what is being like overturned, like or what is like what judgment no longer applies or something like that, with the Libra moon opposite the Saturn-Neptune conjunction of sign of Aries. I mean, because look at, we've got the Ace of Swords in reverse. That's like a faulty judgment. That's like a false declaration. That's like some like deceit or something not being a lack of clarity or straightforwardness or truthfulness or honesty somehow. And then we have the 6 of Pentacles, which is the card that represents reciprocity, balance, reciprocal value, like the even keel. It's literally got scales on it, which we're talking about this Libra heavy energy this weekend. And then not only that, we also have the literal Judgment card in reverse, which that's, you know, that's what I was saying about the Saturn influence with all the Libra and Gemini and Venus also that could be bringing up these like legal matters, and like with Saturn and Neptune, the breaking down of some judgment perhaps that just was not what the proper outcome should have been. And then we've also got the 7 of Wands in reverse. And this is like what we've been fighting against and pushing back against and, you know, determined to overcome. And it's like being able to drop the weapon. You know, it's like no longer having to engage in that fight or no longer having to engage in that dispute. And then with these 2 cards here, the 5 of Pentacles, it's like this whole situation could be having like kept us trapped or like cast out or ostracized or in a state of lack or victimhood somehow. But then we've got the Ace of Wands, which is like the torch of illumination, you know, like the sudden inspiration, like the sudden highlight or impulse or what is being revealed. I don't know, just like this sudden like light bulb moment almost. And then all of these cards in reverse. So, I mean, specifically, this looks like some type of false interpretation of something that led to some type of false judgment or conclusion based on a lack of understanding or inaccurate information that caused something to be like out of balance somehow, that required then some type of fight in order to like expose the truth of, or else like maintain or stay in this place of lack or being like cast out or, you know, cast to the side or something. So that seems kind of specific, but also this is what the energy is saying to me. Like there could be a lot going on, things being overturned, okay, or things being thrown out. There could be weird legal stuff going on right now based on finding out that like the original testimony or like the original information or like the original facts or data was flawed. And as a result of that, maybe somebody being, you know, put into like a bad spot or like got like guilty or something, but they actually weren't. And it's been like this big fight. And then like there's this new, I don't know, trial or something that gives the opportunity for that to be rectified. I don't usually talk or think about things really in terms of like legal matters, but there's just a lot of various elements of things going on out there, including obviously that tarot message right now this week that seem to be leaning heavy into stuff like that. So I don't know, you guys, let me know if that is something that is relevant to you. We're gonna get one more card now. I'm gonna get us a synchronicity card and ask God, Spirit, Universe for a final piece of advice. What do we need to know? What should we keep in mind? What would it benefit us to remind ourselves of as we move through the energy of this week? What is our guidance? Oh, there we go. It says, you guys, don't envy another, which is also interesting because I feel like, is it just me or has this same message been coming up a lot lately? Like, I don't know, like 3 out of 5 or something like that. Like, I feel like I have talked about this exact same theme in like a few of my recent videos. Anyways, do not envy another. Let your conduct be without covetousness. Hebrews 13:5. Remember, you cannot have that which belongs to another. Instead, wish for something very much like what the other has, but never the very thing. For the time being, be content with what you have. Perhaps things are not as they appear. That could be especially beneficial when we do have this energy that is so oriented along the lines of other people and relationship dynamics, and also kind of indulging, splurging, going after what we want. I guess this is reminding us not to envy that which others have. Rather, if we find ourselves in a state of envy, to realize that maybe it's because that thing or a version of that thing is something that does align with us, is truly meant for us, would make us, you know, be very fulfilling to us in some regard, on some level, in some way, in somehow. But if that thing is meant for us, we are going to get our version of it, and focusing on or obsessing over someone else's version of the thing is not helping us to come to a point where we're going to attract our version of it that we want. So our guidance yet again is, you guys, don't envy another. So we're not going to be doing that as we move throughout the course of the week. And that's what I have to say for our report for the day. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did like it, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, you guys. Share it with your friends if you think they would also enjoy this type of astrology content. Leave me comments. I'm so grateful for your presence on my channel. I really appreciate your feedback, what you guys have to say when you share your experiences with me, and especially if they're resonating with what I'm talking about in these videos. That is very valuable information to me. I really appreciate it. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. If you want to know what's on this whiteboard over here, see the whole thing, I have a Facebook group where I post images of those boards. You can find that in my description box below, a link to that Facebook group. And come back with me on Friday, you guys. We have more of this shifting energy that we need to talk about. Venus is entering the sign of Taurus, Venus's home sign. That's definitely going to you know, reorient us in some regard. So I'll be back to talk about that, and there's going to be more, so you don't want to miss it. Come back with me on Friday, you guys. I will see you then. Have a beautiful midpoint of your week, and until next time, bye guys.